Hello and welcome to Auspol Explained. I'm your long curly haired host as always, David, and today I'm going to answer the question, does Australia pay the royal family? King Charles III isn't just the King of the United Kingdom, but also the King of Australia and like a dozen other places known as the Commonwealth Realms. So does that mean that Australia pays the royal family? Do we pay taxes or like part of their salary? Like, here you go, my lord. Here's the latest batch of coins with your face on them. Why did I do an accent? How does the royal family get money anyway? Well, the answer is it comes from multiple sources. The royal annual budget is called the sovereign grant and is linked to, but not directly derived from, the profits of the Crown Estate, which is a large multi-billion pound portfolio of land and real estate across the UK. That's a bunch of words, but basically imagine, if there was a landlord who happened to have £16 billion worth of land and real estate. The sovereign grant only gets a percentage of the profits of those estates, and the rest goes to the British government. King Charles can't personally spend $16 billion. He's not even allowed to sell or manage that land. But some of it does go towards things like staff, royal residences, travel, etc. And the sovereign grant is expected to grow from £86 million a year to £125 million in 2025. Or £130-something million from one estimate that I saw. Basically, lots of money. But it is operational costs. But don't imagine that King Charles doesn't have personal spending money. He does. He has quite a lot. This is separate to the personal fortune of King Charles, which is estimated to be about £2 billion. There's also the Duchy of Lancaster, which is a private collection of land, properties and assets, whatever that means, I don't know, jewelry, stamps, imagine that. Imagine collecting stamps and be like, this one's very important, let me tell you. It has my face on it. That duchy provides a private income as well as his private fortune, and it generates about £20 million a year. But how much of all this income does King Charles and the royal family get from Australia? Well, the answer is £0, which when you convert into real money is $0. Except, there's a little asterisk, there is one big expense. Whenever the royals visit a country, the host country pays for it all. So when the royals visit Australia, we are paying for that visit. Travel, accommodation, security, media liaisons, event organizers, and, whatever else there is. There could be other miscellaneous costs. For all I know, we, the taxpayer, may actually pay for it whenever King Charles III stops by a little tourist store and picks up a little plush koala toy for the grandkids. Though if he does, it's going to be pretty much the cheapest thing he does in the entire visit, because these things do actually rack up a bit of a cost. Now the thing is, right, this expense isn't just for a visit from the king or queen, but for any of the royal family. So how much do these royal visits cost? Well, when the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, also known by their human flesh names, Kate and William, visited in 2014, it cost Australian taxpayers approximately $474,000. Most of that was transport. Over $250,000 was spent on travel. They also had $85,000 for a media liaison and over $73,000 for meals and accommodation. Their trip lasted 10 days. Now the thing is, right, that's not a full picture of what the cost is. These figures come from a Freedom of Information request, which is how we know how much these things cost, but they specifically do not include the cost of security or GST. That just means that, well, whatever the number is, it's actually just bigger. How much? I don't know. Queen Elizabeth II's last visit to Australia was in 2011. I didn't attend any of the events, but my wife did, and she actually managed to take a nice photo of the Queen, which, if you are watching the video version of this, here's a photo of the Queen. Wow. Look at her. And if you're not watching this, but actually listening to it as a podcast form, maybe on Spotify, I actually deeply appreciate that you're consuming it that way, because not many people do. And I actually put in a lot of effort to make sure there's not too many visual elements in these episodes for accessibility purposes, so they can double as podcasts and you can learn just by audio alone. Anyway, just, quick little shout out You can also follow me on Spotify. But back to what we came here for, learning how much money we spent to host the Queen. Her visit was also for 10 days, but came to almost $1.74 million. However, asterisk, the number is actually bigger. These visits are planned well in advance, so royal staff do visits in advance. For this particular visit, there was also a pre-advance visit to scout out venues and prepare timetables, which, if we include the costs of that as well, bring Elizabeth's last visit to nearly $2.69 million. Again, this also excludes security and GST, so the cost is, you know, bigger somehow. To be fair, you're not going to remember the exact figures, you're just getting the impression this costs us money. To give you an idea of how that money is spent, well, they don't just fly the Queen and go, here you go. They have to fly staff. They need accommodation as well. And also part of the Queen's last visit included a quick trip to Melbourne, which included opening the Royal Children's Hospital and greeting crowds of people at Federation Square. When you're the Queen, you can't just walk down the streets giving high fives to random pedestrians. To be fair, I can't do that either, people just give me odd looks. But the Queen is a little bit more popular than me, so there is a bit more logistics involved in crowd management. So an event company was hired at a cost of over $386,000 for the 4-hour event. Before Charles was king, he visited as prince to open the Commonwealth Games back in 2018. That costed over $1 million for Australian taxpayers. Prince Harry and Meghan also had a royal visit the same year, and it cost $411,000 for 10 days in Australia. Which, hey, if you remember, that's less than William and the other one, Kate. Yes, it is. Yes. What is it about 10-day visits to Australia? Is that like the ideal amount of time to visit? You may notice a recurring theme here, and much like me, the royals don't seem to have enough annual leave to take a full 2 weeks off for their holiday down south. 10-day holidays it is. They're official functions, okay. The Australian Monarchist League argues that while the cost is high, the benefits outweigh those costs because it generates profits. The Australian Monarchist League doesn't actually mention tourism as the benefit. I did do a search of their website trying to find tourism. They don't really use that as an argument for retaining the monarchy. Not that it is meant to be financial, but still, I assume the profits that they mention are tourism related, and to be fair, there is a boost to tourism when the royals visit, because Australia gets broadcast to the rest of the world. That way, all the British people whose ancestors didn't steal a loaf of bread like mine did can see what they're missing out on, and all the beautiful coastline and beaches that you can actually swim in without getting frostbite after 5 minutes. Admittedly, tourism also gets a boost whenever a high-profile person or group visits, like a US celebrity, or the country is featured in overseas media, or Baz Luhrmann makes a movie with Hugh Jackman in it that is meant to attract people to Australia by displaying what we have to offer. By which I mean Hugh Jackman's abs, which you can see on the foreshore of just any major city. The royals are a way of showcasing what Australia has to offer. The Australian Republic movement, however, argues that Australia has had to pay an estimated $6 million in royal family visits since 2011, and this is before King Charles's upcoming visit in October, the cost of which we won't know until after it is finished, and also they've excluded security and GST from the final tally. Their argument is that Australian taxpayers shouldn't pay millions of dollars for a foreign head of state to fly over for a fleeting visit every few years. The Australian Republic movement says that that doesn't really represent us. That's just, you know, a weird little tourism thing that we do for the royals. Of course, there is a lot more to whether or not to keep the monarchy or become a republic than the cost of royal visits. That's really not the main argument for either of those groups. It's a lot more complex, but the question of costs when it comes to royal visits does naturally come up whenever a royal comes down to Australia. A poll in 2023 showed that 78.1% of Australians thought that the royal family should pay for their own visits, while only 21.9% believed that it should be paid by the Australian taxpayers. That figure for the royals should pay for themselves goes up even higher if you're only asking people under 45. So what do you think? Should the royal family pay for their own visits out of pocket, or is it part of our responsibility to pay and host our own sovereign? Comment down below and don't fight in the comments, please. Actually, don't fight in the comments. I'm sure we'll have plenty of pro-monarchy and pro-republic people in the comment section, and I just want to remind you to please be civil. I know that's a very difficult thing on the internet, but like, come on, let's try at least a little bit. And there you have it. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you found that very interesting. If not, well, you got this far, so why not just share? Subscribe, tell your friends and family about me around the dinner table and say, you know what, this one person on YouTube and also Spotify has lots of interesting episodes that sort of explain the Australian political system and does a deep dive into researching all sorts of things to help you understand them better. And you should definitely check it out. And hey, speaking of costs, it can cost you only a couple of dollars a month to support me on Patreon. Why not? The link is below in the description. You are allowed to click on it and give me money. And if any of the royal family happens to be tuning into this, I do, by the way, have a tier on my Patreon, which is for literal millionaires. It is $3,000 a month. That's not a joke. You can sign up and give me $3,000 a month just to do this, just for fun. Just saying. There's no law saying you can't do that. And that's all from me. I'll see you next time.